We need to take action. And yes, we're all out here protesting, and I'm not of age to vote, but it's in your hands to vote for my future, for my brother's future, and for your future. So that's
one more question.
Oh my gosh!
What's going on, guys? I'm Francisco Lindor. I'm out here at the Australian Open. I'm about to walk into Coco's press conference.
Myself, obviously, I have the new team around me, so seeing a different perspective can sometimes just change things completely. So I think I have a new perspective, and I'm
The moment the world stopped, Coco Gauff kneels to 70-year-old Janitor at the Australian Open and says one sentence that changed everything. "Oh, Chatterbox family, you need to stop whatever you are doing right now. Stop scrolling. Put down your coffee. Tell whoever is next to you to sit down too, because what I am about to share with you is not just a sports story. This is not just a feel-good moment for the highlight reel. This is a full-blown, universe-shifting, tear-soaking, soul-restoring moment that happened on one of the biggest stages in professional tennis, and the world has not been the same since. We are talking about the 2026 Australian Open. We are talking about Rod Laver Arena packed to the absolute rafters. And we are talking about the most extraordinary act of human kindness you will ever witness in your entire life. If you came here today expecting your regular dose of sports gossip and celebrity drama, baby, you are in for something so much bigger. So buckle up, because the story of Coco Gauff and a 70-year-old janitor named Margaret is going to change the way you see the world. Let us start at the very beginning, because context is everything when a story is this big. The 2026 Australian Open arrived with more hype and anticipation than almost any Grand Slam in recent memory. After a blockbuster 2025 season that had tennis fans screaming at their screens from Wimbledon to the US Open, the sport's biggest stars arrived in Melbourne with something to prove. The heat was relentless, the courts were blazing, and the competition was ferocious from day one. And right at the center of it all, as always, was Coco Gauff, 21 years old, a Grand Slam champion, an icon in the making, a young woman carrying the weight of an entire generation of tennis fans on her lean, powerful shoulders. Coco had arrived in Melbourne looking sharper than ever. Her ground strokes were devastating, her movement around the court was electric, and her mental composure, always one of her greatest weapons, seemed to have reached a new level entirely. Analysts, commentators, and fellow players were all whispering the same thing in the locker rooms and press rooms of Melbourne Park. This was going to be Coco's year. This was the Australian Open where she was going to go all the way and cement herself as one of the greatest players of her generation. The draw had been kind to her in the early rounds, but as the tournament progressed, a genuinely fearsome opponent stood between her and the quarterfinals. Hailey Baptiste. Now, if you have been sleeping on Hailey Baptiste, this match was a rude awakening that you absolutely needed. Baptiste has been one of the most exciting stories in professional tennis over the last 18 months. A powerhouse athlete with a serve that sounds like a gunshot and a fighting spirit that refuses to quit. She arrived in Melbourne having absolutely demolished her previous opponents, dropping barely a set across her opening matches and looking every bit like a woman on a mission. The media had been buzzing about this potential matchup for weeks. All-American, two rising stars, two women with something enormous to prove. When the draw confirmed they were on a collision course, the internet practically combusted. The match itself was an absolute war. We are talking about the kind of tennis that makes your palms sweat and your heart hammer against your ribs. From the very first game, it was clear that neither of these women was going to make it easy for the other. Baptiste pushed Coco harder than she had been pushed all tournament, trading blistering baseline rallies that stretched for 15, 20, 25 shots. The crowd inside Rod Laver Arena was on its feet for long stretches, gasping and cheering with every screaming winner and every miraculous defensive retrieval. The first set went to a tiebreak that felt like it lasted 100 years. Coco took it on her nerve and her championship experience. The second set was even more brutal, with Baptiste fighting back magnificently and leveling the match, sending the crowd into a frenzy. By the time the third and deciding set began, the atmosphere inside the stadium was unlike anything the commentators had experienced in years. People were gripping their armrests, strangers were huddling together in the stands, and millions of viewers watching from their living rooms around the globe were barely breathing. This was the kind of tennis match that reminds you why sport has the power to bring the entire world to a complete standstill. And then, In a finish that will be replayed on highlight reels for years and years to come, Coco Gauff smashed a blistering forehand winner down the line to claim the final point. Her name, as the world would learn in the frantic hours that followed, was Margaret, 70 years old, a grandmother, a quiet, humble woman who had been working at the Australian Open for over 2 decades. For 20-plus years, Margaret had been one of the invisible army of workers who make the most prestigious tennis tournament in the Southern Hemisphere possible. She swept the courts between matches. She cleared the discarded water bottles and energy bar wrappers. She made sure the ball boys and girls had everything they needed. She was, in every sense of the phrase, one of the unsung heroes behind the curtain of the glamorous world of professional tennis. In that moment, as the crowd celebrated around her and the flashbulbs of 1,000 cameras lit up the arena, Margaret was doing exactly what she always does. She was working, head down, broom in hand, quietly, humbly doing her job in the middle of the chaos, just as she had done thousands of times before over 2 incredible decades. She was not expecting anyone to notice her. She certainly was not expecting what happened next. Coco Gauff walked straight up to her. The murmur of the crowd dropped to an almost supernatural silence. You could see the confusion and shock on Margaret's face as she suddenly became aware that one of the biggest names in professional sport was standing directly in front of her. Coco reached out gently and took the broom from Margaret's weathered, calloused hands. Then, in a gesture that will live in sporting history forever, 21-year-old Coco Gauff dropped down onto one knee. The collective gasp from 15,000 people was so loud and so sharp that it was picked up clearly on the broadcast microphones. Over at the side of the court, Haley Baptiste, who had been packing up her equipment, looked up and went completely still. Coco gently reached out and took Margaret's rough, work-worn hands in her own. She looked up into the elderly woman's eyes, and you could see from even the most distant camera angle that Margaret was already trembling, already overwhelmed, already completely unsure of what was happening and why this global superstar was kneeling before her in front of the entire world. Coco then placed her clean, pristine white tournament towel into Margaret's shaking palms. The cameras zoomed in so tight you could see every line on both of their faces. You could see the raw, unguarded emotion. The world watched in total, breathless, reverent silence. And then Coco spoke. Just one sentence. One single sentence that has since been heard by hundreds of millions of people and has broken the internet in every language on the planet. Lip readers confirmed it within minutes. Courtside audio captured it in the aftermath. And when Coco confirmed the words herself at the press conference that evening, there was not a dry eye in the room. She looked up at Margaret and she said, quietly, warmly, with the most beautiful and genuine smile imaginable, "The hospital and the bank were both paid in full this morning. So please, take my towel, because your working days are officially over." Take a moment. Just breathe that in. The hospital and the bank. Paid in full. Working days officially over. In one sentence, Coco Gauff did not just give a compliment or take a photo or offer a kind word to someone she happened to walk past. She changed this woman's entire life. She erased the financial catastrophe that had been slowly crushing Margaret and her family. And she did it publicly, on one of the biggest stages in world sport, not for the cameras, not for the applause, not for the social media moment. She did it because she had heard about this woman's suffering and she had the power and the heart to stop it. Here is the backstory, Chatterbox family, and it is the part of this story that will absolutely destroy you. In the weeks leading up to the tournament, Margaret's life had quietly descended into a nightmare that she was facing almost entirely alone. Her husband, the man she had spent her entire adult life with, had been diagnosed with a severe and debilitating illness. The medical bills began to pile up almost on the edge of losing their home, the modest family house where they had raised their children and built their lives together over decades. Margaret, at 70 years old, an age where she should have been sitting in her garden watching her grandchildren play, had instead responded the only way she knew how. She kept working. She took double shifts. She showed up every single day to Melbourne Park in the blistering January heat, and she swept those courts and cleaned those locker rooms and did everything that was asked of her with quiet dignity and zero complaint. She chose the court. She chose the moment of her own victory, when every camera in the world was already pointed at her, when the audience was at its most emotionally heightened. when the story would reach the widest possible audience. Whether that was calculated or instinctive, it was genius. And more importantly, it was kind. Profoundly, life-changingly kind. When Margaret's knees buckled, when the footage shows her beginning to collapse forward under the weight of what she had just been told, Coco was already there to catch her. She wrapped her arms around this 70-year-old woman who she had barely exchanged a handful of words with before that moment, and she held her. Right there on the baseline of Rod Laver Arena, while 15,000 people rose to their feet in a standing ovation that shook the building, while the chair umpire quietly wiped his eyes, while Haley Baptiste stood frozen at the sideline, hand over her mouth, tears streaming freely down her face. Unfolding live on broadcast, the hashtag Coco and Margaret was trending globally on every major platform. By the time Coco reached the post-match press conference 30 minutes later, the clip had already been viewed over 40 million times. Within 12 hours, it would surpass 300 million views. Headlines in every language. News channels leading with it across every continent. Sports, celebrity, human interest, it did not matter what your usual beat was. Every journalist and broadcaster on the planet was covering this story because this story was simply too big and too beautiful to ignore. Fellow champions responded immediately and with extraordinary warmth. IGA Swiatek posted a simple message that said she already knew Coco was a champion on the court, but now the whole world knows she is a champion of humanity. Aryna Sabalenka, not typically known for effusive public displays of emotion, posted a lengthy tribute that spoke of being moved to tears and inspired to do more with her own platform. And then there was Serena Williams, the greatest of all time, a woman who has seen everything this sport has to offer, simply posted a photograph of herself as a young player next to a current photograph of Coco and wrote, "This is what legacy really looks like." The internet, predictably, exploded all over again. At the press conference, a visibly emotional Coco tried to deflect the attention with the same grace and humility that has always defined her off-court persona. She told the assembled media that her platform means absolutely nothing if she cannot use it to help the people who are invisible to society. She said that seeing Margaret work so hard at an age where she should be resting and enjoying her family had broken her heart from the moment she found, he said, in the line that has since been quoted on thousands of news segments and social media posts and morning radio shows around the world, that she simply did what she felt God was calling her to do. Nothing more complicated than that. But the story did not end with the press conference. The ripple effects of Coco's extraordinary act of generosity have been unfolding in real time over the hours and days since that match. Margaret's family released a statement through the Australian Open Media Office confirming that their home is saved, that her husband is receiving the best possible care without the crushing shadow of financial ruin hanging over every single moment, that Margaret herself, for the first time in months, slept through the night without waking up in terror about the future. The family said they have no words adequate to express their gratitude, and that they would spend the rest of their lives trying to pay forward even a fraction of the kindness that was shown to them. And then came the news that showed Coco's gesture had done something even bigger than saving one family, extraordinary as that already was. The Australian Open Committee, reportedly stunned and moved by the public attention on the situation of background and seasonal staff, announced the creation of an emergency relief fund specifically designed to support the people who work behind the scenes at the tournament. Groundskeepers, cleaners, security personnel, all kids and their families. The invisible army that makes the whole spectacular show possible, but rarely receives the recognition or the safety net they deserve. The initial funding commitment announced was substantial, and tournament officials credited Coco's actions with shining a light on a gap in their care for staff that they were now committed to closing permanently. In a world that often feels relentlessly cynical and divided, in a media landscape that so frequently trades in outrage and conflict and the worst of human behavior, the story of Coco and Margaret feels like a thunderclap of grace. It feels like proof that goodness still exists in the world, not just in small, private moments, but in massive, public, undeniable, 15,000-person standing ovation moments. It feels like a reminder that fame and wealth and athletic ability are tools, and that the measure of a person is always and forever how they choose to use those tools. The 2026 Australian Open will produce its eventual champion. There will be trophies raised and tears shed and more spectacular tennis played under that relentless Melbourne sun. But when people look back at this tournament 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the moment they will remember first and feel most deeply will not be a match point or a comeback victory. It will be a 21-year-old woman walking to the far end of a hard court, dropping to one knee before an elderly janitor, and speaking 11 words that changed everything. The hospital and the bank were both paid in full this morning, so please, take my towel, because your working days are officially over. That is the Chatterbox story of the decade. Family. That is the moment we will all be talking about for years. And I want to hear from every single one of you right now, because this community is built on real conversation and real emotion and real human connection. Were you watching live when this happened? Did you feel it in your chest the way I felt it in mine? Drop everything you are thinking and feeling in the comments section below, because I promise you I am going to be reading every single one. Share your reaction. Share your messages of love for Coco and for Margaret and her family. And let us fill this comments section with the kind of warmth and humanity that this story so absolutely deserves. If this story moved you, and I know it did because it moved every single person who watched it unfold, then do me the biggest favor you have ever done for this channel. Smash that like button right now and help spread this story to every corner of the internet. Share this video with your friends, your family, your group chats, everybody. Because in a world full of noise and negativity, a story this beautiful deserves to be heard by every human being on the planet. And if you are not already part of the Chatterbox family, what on earth are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you are always first in line when we bring you the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, soul-stirring stories in sports and beyond. Until next time, Chatterbox family, stay kind, stay curious, and never ever stop believing that one person with a good heart can change the world. Because today, Coco Gauff proved it beyond any doubt.